Listen, you're making a big mistake right now. The US government just shut down days ago. This means no job reports coming out, no inflation data, and the Fed is basically flying blind. And while this is taking over major headlines, look at what Bitcoin did. It rallied all the way up towards its all-time high, and many believe we'll see a new record high pretty soon. Of course, Ethereum, Solana, and the rest of the market is along for the ride. The total market cap of crypto is at a level never seen before, and the fear and greed index is inching away from fear and towards greed. So what's going on? The US government shut down operations, and you would think something like this is pretty bad news for everyone. Instead, we get a nice pump in the crypto market. And we're seeing the same type of positive action in the stock market as well as with the S&P 500 trading at its record high. Well, this shouldn't be too surprising if you look at what happened during the last few government shutdowns. December 22nd, 2018, we saw the longest shutdown in US history, just over a month. And if you study the S&P 500 during this time period, it actually went up. By the end of the shutdown, the price jumped up by roughly 10%. That's basically the average annual return on the asset, except it happened in a month during a government shutdown. Now, crypto was facing bear market conditions during this time, and Bitcoin actually dropped by about 10%. There was also a 3-day shutdown earlier in 2018 where the S&P 500 gained about 1% and Bitcoin fell by about 6%. But if you look at the 2013 shutdown, which lasted about 2.5 weeks, again, the S&P 500 went up overall, gaining about 3% during this period. And at the same time, Bitcoin actually went up by 14%. But this was also during the bullish run-up, just months before Bitcoin hit a peak. So what's the takeaway here? Well, first of all, government shutdown doesn't really mean that the market is going to tank. In fact, we saw the opposite happen in the past. Now, while the S&P 500 always went net positive through these shutdowns, Bitcoin didn't follow this pattern during the last shutdown. And if you look at what's happening right now, it's a completely different story. Bitcoin looks like it's ready to set a new record high again. So despite the government shutting down, are we about to see the next explosive breakout for Bitcoin and all of crypto? Well, don't forget, it's also October, the month where crypto usually goes up. Well, there are a lot of factors to consider here aside from US politics. And in this video, we'll dive into some indicators that could be telling us something massive is about to happen to crypto. I've followed these indicators for a while now, and I'll admit that some major signals are starting to flash. So stick around because what you find here might change your entire outlook on the crypto space. Now, one thing you should know about the crypto space is that there's no shortage of opportunities. Whether it's buying the dip to load up your spot bags or jumping into futures trades for a quick profit, you need a good, reliable exchange to use. And WEEX has everything you need. All the trading tools you need in one place, a user interface that makes it easy to track positions in real time, and competitive fees. Follow the link down below to check it out for yourself. It's free to sign up, so it doesn't hurt to give it a try. And if you're looking for a place to get early alpha in crypto, then check out the FireHustle Discord group. We're discussing trading strategies, new projects on our radar, and early opportunities before they hit YouTube and Twitter. The link is also in the description down below if you're interested. Now, if you haven't already, then hit those like and subscribe buttons. And remember that anything I say is not financial advice. So what's really driving Bitcoin and the rest of the market right now? Well, to answer that, we need to zoom out and look at one of the most important indicators for Bitcoin's price, the M2 money supply. If you're not familiar with M2, here's a simple explanation. It's a measure of how much money is circulating in the global economy. When M2 goes up, more money is being printed, which means more liquidity is available. When M2 goes down, money supply is tightening. And why does this matter for Bitcoin? Well, when there's more money in the system, investors have more capital to deploy. And a good chunk of that flows into risk assets like stocks, real estate, and crypto. So when M2 is climbing, Bitcoin tends to follow. And from what we've been seeing over the last little while, there's about a 2 to 3 month delay before Bitcoin's price reacts. Now let's look at what's happening right now. M2 is still on the rise as we speak, and it's been climbing consistently since the start of this year. If you look closely at the chart, you can spot these peaks and pullbacks over the last year. And Bitcoin's price reacted to this with about a 10-week delay. It's easier to see this correlation on the 10-week shifted chart for Bitcoin. For the last year, M2 has been on a strong climb. There hasn't been a significant drawdown yet, no major peak, no pullback. And if Bitcoin is following with that 2 to 3 month delay, then it only makes sense for Bitcoin to continue moving up from here. So until we see a clear peak and pullback for M2, Bitcoin might have more time to push further up. Now compare this current run to past bull runs. In 2017, M2 was on a steady uptrend for about a year before Bitcoin had its massive parabolic climb at the end of the year. In 2020, M2 went vertical after the COVID stimulus injections. And a few months later, Bitcoin started its climb to a new all-time high in 2021. This graph also shows the rate of growth for M2, which is this green area. Clearly, there was rapid growth for M2 leading into the peak of crypto. And this was true for each of the last 2 cycles. Right now, the rate of growth seems to be climbing, but it's nowhere close to where it was during the previous cycle peaks. But remember, rate cuts have begun. This is one of the critical factors for quantitative easing, which goes hand in hand with increasing money supply. So if this pattern holds and we're following the same playbook as 2017 and 2020, then M2 going even further up means Bitcoin following to higher highs, which suggests we haven't seen the best of Bitcoin just yet. But we can all agree on one thing. Bitcoin setting new highs is amazing, but there's something more exciting for people in crypto: altcoin season. So typically, Bitcoin leads the market, reaches record highs, and dominates the headlines. Then there's a rotation that happens into the altcoin market, which fuels a big run up for altcoins, and we often see smaller market cap coins go through insane price movements. But for this rotation to happen, we usually see a shift in Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin goes from being the dominant cryptocurrency to losing its dominance to the altcoin market. And we see this when the dominance ratio for Bitcoin drops significantly, eventually falling under 50%. As of right now, Bitcoin dominance is standing strong above 50%. Yes, it did fall under 60%, but it's not like the typical rotation we've seen in past cycles. In 2017, Bitcoin dominance started dropping in February and the market peaked in December. That's about 10 months of altcoins outperforming Bitcoin. In 2021, dominance started falling in December of 2020 and the market peaked in May of 2021. About 5 months of alt season. So if market dominance hasn't flipped yet in this cycle and we just entered October, doesn't that mean alt season is almost here? Well, hold on. Before we get too excited, we need to address something. What if we already had our altcoin season? Remember that Solana meme craze last year? From late 2024 into early 2025, the Solana ecosystem absolutely exploded. Meme coins were launching all over the place. People were making life-changing money in days, sometimes hours. Solana became the hottest chain to trade on, surpassing Ethereum at one point in terms of activity and revenue. Sounds like a true altcoin season, right? If you ask me, it did feel pretty euphoric to see that kind of price action. So the big question is, does that actually count as the one and only altcoin season this cycle? Well, if it was, then we would have been in a bear market shortly after. The market would have seen a major crash with coins falling from their peaks and resetting at lower levels. The cycle would basically restart. But that's not what happened. We did see the market pull back after the January peak. Bitcoin fell about 25%, altcoins cooled off, but it didn't really feel like a bear market. There was no capitulation, no major fear and panic. It felt more like a correction. The truth is, since then, we've seen so much progress for the crypto space. Major companies have been buying up Bitcoin and Ethereum for their balance sheets. New regulations are more accepting of digital assets and stablecoins. We're seeing crypto merge with real-world finance like never before. So with all this in mind, it shouldn't be surprising that Bitcoin went on a massive run to new all-time highs, followed by Ethereum's massive run and several other altcoins pushing to higher ranges. The total market cap just hit a new high as well. It doesn't really sound like we're past the peak. It sounds more like we're headed towards it. And if that's the case, when can we expect altcoins to go parabolic? Because that's what we're all waiting for, right? Well, let's consider something else that's different this time around as well. ETFs. We've already had spot Bitcoin ETFs and Ethereum ETFs approved and trading in the US, and now there are applications pending for XRP, Solana, Dogecoin, and several other altcoins. There's a lot of hype for these ETFs, but does approval translate to positive price action? Well, not really. For Bitcoin and Ethereum, right after ETF approval and launch, the price actually retraced a bit. This was followed by a stronger push up later on. ETFs do unlock more capital coming in from traditional and institutional investors. We saw ETH inflows outpace Bitcoin at one point, and now with Solana, XRP, and other coins waiting for spot ETFs in the US, we could see a shift towards these assets after approvals come through. More inflows and eventually an impact on price action. Now, one thing to keep in mind is the government shutdown. This could potentially impact the SEC's operations, and if that's the case, there may be delays before we see any approvals. We'll just need to wait for more clarity on the situation. Now, I want to go back to Solana for a second, because the Solana season we saw last year was a pretty big deal for the crypto space. But I believe it was just a stepping stone before the next stage. It was a chance for Solana to show off its tech and gain more recognition, and it worked. The chain handled massive transaction volume. It proved it could scale. Even the president and the first lady launched their own meme coins on Solana. The attention was insane. But the truth is, most of it was based on speculation. Meme coins, quick flips, people chasing the next 100x. That type of action just wasn't sustainable. But now what we're seeing is a shift towards utility. Real projects building real apps and products on Solana. And this spans across many different up and coming sectors in crypto. Payment platforms, true AI and agent products, privacy infrastructure, prediction markets. And if you're in the FireHustle Discord, you know we talked about some of these hot sectors way before they popped up on most people's radars. But the point is, these products and services will attract more real users. Not just degen traders looking for quick gains, but people who want to use blockchain technology for something useful. It's safe to say that Solana has proven itself as an easy way to enter Web3, and knowing that retail hasn't really flooded crypto yet, Solana basically set itself up as a gateway into the space. So while the Solana craze last year was massive, I think what's coming next will be even bigger, because this time it's not just hype, it's actual adoption. And Solana is just one example. There are several big projects and teams working hard on their tech, and remember, stablecoin adoption is moving up fast in the real world. The bridge between DeFi and traditional finance isn't just being developed, there's already a prototype bridge in place, and it'll only continue to improve over time. So here's the bottom line. M2 is climbing, Bitcoin dominance hasn't flipped, and altcoin ETFs are on the way. Yes, the US government is shut down, and we have no idea when the shutdown will end. But that doesn't mean we should just panic in the crypto market. Things are looking super bullish for the space, and if you ask me, we're not at the end of this cycle. The biggest move might still be ahead of us. In fact, because of how much has changed over the last year alone, there are theories about how this cycle may extend beyond this year and deeper into 2026. I'll be keeping my eyes on M2 for signs of peaking, and at the same time monitoring Bitcoin dominance for a true rotation into alts. That's when most of us expect things to get more interesting. But what are your opinions? Do you think we've already had our alt season, or is it still coming? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I read every single one. And if this video was helpful, then hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to check out the FireHustle Discord if you want more insights on the market and if you want to just stay ahead of the curve. Link is down below. And remember, none of this is financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.